Hey, thanks for checking out this episode of Screen Facts with Jason Davis, your movie trivia and discussion podcast. Please follow us on Instagram at ScreenFactsPod. You can get in touch with us via email at screenfacts@yahoo.com. Also, please visit jasondavisvoice.com/podcast. If you want to support the show, you can throw a little money in our hat, so to speak, with either a donation or if you'd like to buy some Screen Facts merchandise. If you don't want to do any of that, that's fine too. We just appreciate you being here. Thanks so much. Joining me for this episode, a great friend of mine, somebody who's been an important part of my life for, over 25 years. It's hard to believe. Yeah. My buddy, Les Sinclair. Les, thanks for doing this episode with me.
Oh, I love doing these.
Cool. I appreciate you being along for the ride. And we're going to talk about a great action movie that we both grew up with. First Blood, released October 22nd, 1982, about 5 months after Rocky III. Which is very interesting. A big year for Sylvester Stallone, right?
Yeah, that was pretty incredible. Rocky III was also a good movie. Maybe if you haven't talked about that.
We have not, actually. We've talked about the first Rocky and the last Rocky, Rocky Balboa, but we have not done any of the ones in between. So if that's one you'd want to talk about, we can think about that for a future episode for sure.
Mr. T was cool. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, Clever Lang, man. So this movie is based on a novel from 1972 by David Morrell. And according to IMDb, Morrell actually says he prefers the film over the novel, which is very interesting.
Well, I don't know the novel, but I really like the film. I can tell you that I remember hitchhiking with my brother to see this movie. And so it's rated R, and I don't think I was allowed to get in the movie theater. But times in 1982 were a little more flexible.
Yeah.
Or maybe not. But it was really great. And I remember talking about it with my brother on the way home, just because we were hitchhiking home. And so walking along the dark roadway, it was great.
The question is, did anybody pick you up when you were hitchhiking?
Yeah, we got rides. There were people from our town who had gone to see the movie that night. So it ended up working out great.
Yeah, I never read the book either. In the trivia of IMDb, they talk about the differences between the book and the movie a little bit. From what I read, in the book, he's like a complete psychopath. He just kills everybody without any remorse. I'm glad that they humanized him a little bit more in the movie. That's Sylvester Stallone's choice because he was one of the screenwriters.
I think that Sylvester Stallone has great instincts for character development. You think about some of the characters that he has been part of, and Rocky is one, was a real life guy's story. And then this guy, and he realizes what the character needs to be endearing to the audience, because I think that if he had been a complete psychopath, it would have had a very different vibe than respecting the Vietnam vets who'd come back and had PTSD.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm watching the movie and at no point in the movie am I rooting for the cops.
That was a real distinction too, wasn't it? I mean, there were two things that I noticed about the movie. One is it gets right into it. Man,
yeah.
I was thinking, I thought there was a little bit more lead up time, but as I was rewatching it, really gets right into the action right away. The cops, I really realized how big of a man Brian Dennehy was.
Yep.
I remember that he was a large guy. When you see him standing next to Sylvester Stallone, it was really incredible that you go, wow, that guy's a really big dude. And he did some of his own stunts in this movie too, I understand.
Yeah, he and Stallone both, and they both got hurt.
Yeah,
cracked ribs and stuff. It's pretty amazing that they allowed the actors to do some pretty intense stuff. Stallone, when he fell into the tree later in the movie and he lands on his ribs, he's not acting. He really cracked his ribs in that scene. And then when Brian Dennehy fell through the skylight in the sheriff's offe, he cracked
broken ribs.
Yeah, it's crazy that they were doing real stunts like that.
Apparently, Sylvester Stallone went to the emergency room a lot. He even went with his fake cut on his arm, and he was bleeding. And so he took that to the emergency room just to see what they would do. They called him like the toughest man in the world or something. Because he was bleeding profusely from his arm, and it was all fake. But I thought that was really great story. He also had to go to the emergency room to get a tetanus shot because the rats, which are seemingly great little animals, until you put them in really cold water, and then they apparently turn vicious. And so they were biting him. And as I was watching this movie, there's the scene in the cave where the rats are on his back, and he takes the rats and he squeezes them and he slams them into the water. And I was going, man, I bet you this movie does not have anything on the back that says no animals were hurt. And it turns out that is right. The animals were hurt. And one of the people wanted to turn the movie into the Canadian humane society.
That's a crazy scene because apparently Stallone is claustrophobic. So he's crawling through this cave, and it's probably a tough scene to film because I'm sure the water's cold and he has claustrophobia and he has rats crawling on him. So it's probably...
That bite. Yeah.
This is he doesn't say a lot in the movie Rambo, but it's a very physical role for Stallone, and my hat's off to him.
Not only does it solidify him as an action star, but he does some really good acting in this movie too. I think of Tom Hanks and Will Smith when they do these character movies where they're off alone and they don't say a whole lot, but they're acting really well. I think Stallone does that a lot in this movie too. He's alone, and even when he's interacting with Richard Crenna, he does some really good acting, especially at the end.
Yeah, that scene at the end, we'll talk about that in a minute. Right in the beginning, the first scene when he meets Delmar Barry's, I guess, mother. Here's the thing.
Right.
So Sue pointed out something very interesting about this movie. There's actually only 3 female characters in this movie.
Oh, wow.
Only one of which is credited. So the 3 are Delmar Barry's, I guess, mother in the beginning.
They don't say.
Right.
They don't say if it's his mother, his wife, his sister.
She seems like she might be older than what his wife would be, but I don't know. I think Stallone does some pretty good acting in that scene too. You know, when he's fumbling through his pockets looking for the photo and stuff. And so it's her, the little girl that's with her, and then a woman on street, Amy Alexander plays her. But other than that, no other women in the movie and only the one credited, which is very fascinating. This is another movie that makes cops look really stupid.
They're humans though, right?
Right.
I mean, that is the thing. And some people carry a chip on their shoulder, and some people who are cops carry a chip on their shoulder. And it does make those cops with chips on their shoulder make all cops look bad, because there are some really good cops. There are also some really bad cops.
Right.
And as I understand it from the book, there was maybe more of a rub between these 2 characters, because Rambo was from Vietnam and the sheriff was he'd served in Korea, and Korea was sort of an invisible war, and those guys didn't get their due. And then these guys from Vietnam, while some of them were hailed as heroes, others were spit on and called baby killers. And so that may have created some of the rub as well.
Yeah, but not even just the sheriff. All of his subordinates, especially Galt, right out of the gate, they just abuse the guy. And it's hard to watch. You're rooting for Rambo the whole time.
And poor David Caruso is the lone holdout. He's the dissenter of the police going, wait a second, guys.
Yeah, something's not right with this guy. Yeah. So this movie was directed by Ted Kotcheff. Interestingly... He did a lot of stuff, but the same guy that directed Weekend at Bernie's directed this movie, which I think is kind of interesting.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. The screenplay by Michael Kozel, William Sackheim, and Sylvester Stallone. There were 26 drafts of the script. From what I understand, this thing was a mess before Stallone rewrote it. And the movie, when they originally shot it, was like 3 or 3.5 hours. And they cut so much out. It was Stallone's idea to kind of make the Rambo character not talk as much and let the sheriff's department do most of the storytelling and the way they move the story along. It works. I mean, they pared it down to a little over an hour and a half. And like you said, it jumps right in. They don't waste a lot of time with preamble. They get right into the action, and it's great. It really sucks you in. I think as much of a badass as John Rambo is as a character, I mean, Colonel Troutman, he really sucks you in too. He's got some of the best lines in the movie, I think.
Yeah, and pretty amazing that Richard Crenna was brought on, because it was Kirk Douglas who was originally cast and then bailed out at the last minute. In fact, Richard Crenna was brought on so last minute, he didn't even have time to learn his lines. They were feeding him the lines off camera.
You'd never know it from the performance. The way they introduce him is even great. The sheriff is having a conversation with the other police officer, and he says, "Why would God create a man like John Rambo? God didn't create him. I did." Great stuff.
He sa's it with such a commanding presence.
Yep.
You believe that he could be his commanding officer.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
I mean, it's really good stuff. And all along, his lines are some of the most memorable, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think you understand. I didn't come here to rescue Rambo from you. I came here to rescue you from him. The sheriff's like, "Oh, really? Thanks for your concern," and all that. And he's like, "You don't want to accept the fact that you're dealing with an expert in guerrilla warfare, with a man who's the best with guns, with knives, with his bare hands, a man who's been trained to ignore pain, ignore weather, to live off the land, to eat things that would make a billy goat puke. His job was to kill, period." And Rambo was the best.
That's a great line.
Yeah.
Kill, period.
Yeah. That, and you're telling me if we send 200 men against Rambo, it's a no-win situation? Well, if you send 200 men against Rambo, you better remember one thing. What's that? A good supply of body bags. Great stuff.
It really is. And you think about, like you were saying, that this movie had been through so much rigmarole, like 26 script iterations. And
Yep.
They had actors attached to it, like Chris Christopherson as Rambo, Gene Hackman as the sheriff, and Lee Marvin as Troutman. Actually, I think that might have been a good movie. It would have been a different movie, but it might have been a good movie. So a lot of great actors were pinged for these roles. But, you know, as many things, you go, well, it worked out the way it was supposed to. The movie had the right people in it with the right chemistry.
Yeah. I just remember everybody was really excited for First Blood Part 2 because this movie, it did well. It made money, but then it had a really big resurgence when it came out on cable and home video and all that. So people were really excited for the sequel. And the sequel was good. It wasn't nearly as good as this. There was a lot more action. But I mean, it was really just about him just killing people and blowing things up. And he literally blows up a guy with a bow and arrow in First Blood Part 2.
Well, what's interesting, though, is you realize he only killed one person in this movie. It was Gold. This movie wasn't full of death. It was full of
destruction,
violence, for sure. And you mentioned blowing things up. As I was watching this, I was going, wow, they used to blow stuff up. There was no CGI. They were blowing up cars. And I just thought that was really impressive. And to think about the way they used to make movies. And if you blew something up, you either had to get it right the first time or it was going to cost you a lot of money to blow up more stuff.
Oh, yeah. No question. The scene where he blows up the gas station, man,
yes.
That's a incredible explosion on film.
Yeah, and then, you know, and that has repercussions because then they blow up, a dozen cars after that, all connected to the gas station Inferno. So really incredible. And you can only imagine, as I'm watching this, I'm thinking, if I lived in this town, could you imagine that carnage and chaos in your little town? Like, what is going on?
Yeah, the sheriff gets on the PA and says, please get off the streets, you know, until further notice kind of thing.
Yeah, and that they had a PA that connected to everyone in the streets.
I guess in a small town in Jerkwater, USA, as Troutman puts it.
Another Richard Crenna line. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, and speaking of Richard Crenna, so who created Rambo? Samuel Troutman, Uncle Sam. I thought that was a great little play, too.
Yep. I definitely think that this movie set the tone for action movies of the 80s pretty well.
And there was something about this one, too, that really resonated because I think that it was a story that people could understand, especially with the Vietnam vets were really starting to tell their stories and we were starting to empathize with what happened to them. We would get a glimpse into that world. And I think it's that storyline that really carries it through. And that's why I think the other Rambos sort of lost it because it wasn't this compelling storyline. It was more like a let's go kill people action flick. All that's well and good, but this one, it's the story through line that really carries the movie.
Yeah, I think in the sequels, John Rambo goes from a sympathetic character to just a killing machine, essentially. Let's talk about the final scene where Troutman takes him out of the sheriff's office and we see him being walked out to what we assume is a long jail sentence, right? The scene in the sheriff's department where Rambo breaks down, the story he tells about his buddy getting blown up by the kid with the shoe shine box, that was a real story from a vet that was told to Stallone that he puts in the movie. Wow.
Well, and I think, again, some of the best acting there for Sylvester Stallone ever. Boy, the emotional aspect. And when he reaches out and he grabs Troutman and they hug, and then you watch Troutman's hand and he's got it up, and then he places it on his back. And it's like that, to me, was just the two of them in a beautiful piece of acting. It was really, really good. And again, why the movie is so good because of the ending, the emotional aspect, and the acting that went into that.
Rambo goes from this beast of destruction where he's just shooting everything up, blowing everything up, and he's walking around like a crazy person trying to find more guns. And then he just becomes this almost quivering mess of a human being just destroyed. And he talks about how, you know, in the Army, he was something. He could fly helicopters and he could drive tanks. And he comes back to America and he can't even get a job parking cars, you know?
Yeah. amazingly, they worked that into the other Rambos, because in later Rambos, he flies a gunship and he drives a tank.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's reality. I mean, veterans come home from these conflicts and these wars and they can't shut it off. PTSD is such a terrible thing. And, obviously I'm not speaking from experience, but it's a shame that in our country, as great as America is, we do not take care of our veterans the way we should.
I'm glad you said that, because I totally agree 100%. My dad was a veteran. He fought in World War II in Korea. He was a Bronze Star and Purple Heart recipient.
Wow.
My mom said she used to pick shrapnel out of him.
Wow.
And it was still coming out of him even in late 1960s.
Wow, that's crazy.
So he drank a lot before he died. She said that he drank to forget.
Yeah.
That he understood why he was drinking, because it was a terrible thing that we made our people do.
Yeah. The fact that we need programs like the Wounded Warriors Project and all these other veteran charity organizations, not good.
And that the VA doesn't do what the VA needs to do. It's underfunded, it's understaffed, and that the government creates these people and put them in a situation where they have to do these things. And I am so appreciative. I love the freedom that our military service personnel have provided me.
Of course.
I cannot appreciate them enough. But that our government doesn't appreciate them enough. And as you were saying, we need nonprofits, other third-party organizations to help take care of them versus the government, the taxpayers taking care of them is kind of sad.
Yeah. And it's not just about their physical health when they come back, because obviously not everybody comes back with physical injuries. It's the mental health stuff that is never addressed or rarely addressed or not addressed nearly enough. That's where they really need help. Probably almost everybody who serves needs help. Even if you weren't in an actual conflict where stuff was blowing up around you, just having to be aware all the time is probably something that's really hard to get over mentally. So, yeah, I really wish our government would step up the care of veterans a lot more.
Yeah, in lieu of that, though, we are fortunate to have these nonprofit organizations that when people come home wounded and can't get around, they'll buy them houses and cars and stuff to make their life better. And then the mental health aspect being dealt with as well. So many of the people who are unhoused are veterans who have served and been in conflict, and then they're grappling with this mental health issue. And that we have veterans that are unhoused, to me, is super sad. We really need to take better care of our people.
How did this movie affect you as a teenager?
My friends and I were really into it. Like, once this hit, I thought I was going to go into the Army anyway because of my dad's heritage. And I played Army a lot. In fact, I went out when they used to have these Army Navy stores for people that remember those. And those were surplus stores. So you could go and buy grenades and knives and camouflage canteens, all super cheap and really cool. So the knife in this movie, which was custom made, they replicated it all over the place because they saw that there was a desire for these things. So I went out and I bought one and I still have it today.
Oh, wow.
You can see it's a pretty big knife. It has been used. So my sheath is all beat up. It used to have a little pocket here for a sharpening stone.
Okay.
The knife is like, it's got a saw on the back and a can opener there. But inside there used to be, on top of the handle, was a compass, which was really cool. It was waterproof. And there were matches and a saw, and there were other things in there too. I can't even remember what. As a kid, we used to play in the woods all the time. I used that wire saw to saw down trees and make forts and all sorts of stuff. So this real knife has been really used.
That is impressive that you have almost a genuine Rambo knife right there. Yeah. Hopefully you never stitched up your own arm, though.
I have stitched up my own hand.
Get out of here.
That's a whole other story.
Not having to do with the knife, though, right?
No, it had nothing to do with the knife.
Oh, my God. It's funny. So that's really cool that the character really fired you up that much that you went and bought a similar knife. I have a similar story. I saw the original Rocky. So it came out in 1976. So I would have been 7 years old. I remember being so moved by that movie that at one point I actually drank raw eggs.
Oh, I have never. How was it?
I do not recommend it.
Yeah.
It was just disgusting.
Sylvester Stallone.
He's inspired us.
Things. Yeah, inspiring us. That's a better way to say it.
Making
Yes.
us do stupid things.
Inspiring.
Is that what you're going to say?
Yes.
He basically made a career out of these two characters. I mean, he had a lot of success outside of Rocky and Rambo, but one day when we lose Sylvester Stallone, people are going to be talking about these two characters a lot.
Well, and I think his influence is so great and so profound. The character Rocky, who just keeps living on, even in the movies Creed, that wouldn't be if it weren't for Sylvester Stallone. Rambo is also great. As I understand it, they'll probably do prequels of this.
I have heard
Maybe
rumors
Ryan
of that.
Gosling, because he was inspired by Rambo as well. The character development Sylvester Stallone has given us, he has really good instincts. And to look at him, to think about who he is, I guess he's more of a regular man, even though there for a while he was an 80s blockbuster macho
Superstar.
dude.
Yeah.
But he is a great storyteller.
Yeah, I mean, you know, people like to think that he is Rocky or is Rambo, this sort of, you know, inarticulate whatever. He's a smart dude, Stallone, and he bet on himself with the original Rocky, and he's been riding that wave for his whole career. You know, you can't help but be inspired by that. He's a great writer, and I think very underrated as an actor.
He's a really inspiring actor, an inspiring movie star. He is a movie star.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, this is a great movie, and even though there are things in it that might be a little far-fetched, and, you know, there are certainly times in the movie where you have to suspend disbelief quite a bit, he's believable enough that a guy that's been trained in guerrilla warfare could do the damage that he does in this movie. I believe that there are people that are, you know, capable of doing what he does in this movie. Well, Les, thanks so much for doing this episode. Yeah, we probably should talk about more of Stallone's movies. I look forward to the next one with you.
Always great, Jason. Thank you.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for listening. Remember, if you want to get in touch with us, email us, screenfacts@yahoo.com. Follow us on Instagram @screenfactspod. And please, if you'd like to support the show by making a donation or buying merchandise, you can do so at jasondavisvoice.com/podcast.
Don't push it, or I'll give you a war you won't believe.